Welcome to the Speaking and Meditation Podcast. You can find my episodes on speakingpodcast.com and meditationpodcast.org. My guest, who's in Hawaii, she's the author of the international best-selling book, Science of Yoga. And you can see the beautiful picture there for those watching on BitChute, YouTube, Rumble, and Spotify. And it's been translated to, I believe, 15 languages, which is impressive. Your new book, Meditation for the Real World, is there, and I can honestly say I've read a lot of books on meditation. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's a fantastic book, and for those that maybe were taught meditation the wrong way, had the wrong instructor, and it just doesn't work for me, I just say read that book because it'll open your eyes. You've studied yoga and meditation in India, Tai Chi in China, in masters in yoga therapy, I believe.
Yeah.
Please welcome Ann Swanson.
So glad to be here, Roy.
Looking forward to this. And I suppose, like I've touched on the different things you're doing, and I want to go into all of them, but I'd like to know your own kind of journey, because I think everybody kind of has their own things happen, and that's the reason they get into it. So you might let us know your own story.
I mean, like many people, I came to these practices for my own health and well-being. I was so anxious. I mean, my level of anxiety was like I would pass out at the most inopportune times, a lot of social anxiety. And I also dealt with chronic pain since I was a teenager. So I came to yoga first, yoga and Tai Chi, the physical practices is what really attracted me. And by the time we would get to the end of class and it was like meditation time, whether you're lying in your final relaxation pose and meditating and being guided, or you're sitting and meditating, I would be looking at my watch like, it is time to go. I have things to do. I just didn't understand the value of it. And it didn't click for me at first. But over time, as different teachers would introduce a variety of techniques, there was a technique that would work for me suddenly. And I was like, oh, wow, that's what it's like. You get these little glimpses of lightness, of like the weight being taken off of your shoulders, of presence. And over time, I've gotten more into it. And it's really meditation has gotten me through some of the hardest times in my life. And I'm really grateful for that. My journey led me from being very anxious and in pain to India, where I studied yoga and sound healing and Ayurvedic massage. And then from there, I also went to China and studied Tai Chi Qigong. And weirdly, actually did my 200-hour teacher training in China, half in Chinese and half in English. But there were Indian teachers there. And then I came back to the US and I decided to do the like pre-med course load. I felt like if I was going to be a great yoga teacher, I would need to understand anatomy and physiology and like what's going on and be able to communicate with the medical world. And so I thought I would become, I don't know, a physical therapist, something in that field. And I did all the course load and worked in a cadaver lab, became a massage therapist, just studied the body in different perspectives, but ultimately ended up doing my master's of science in yoga therapy, which led to writing books about the science of yoga and the science of meditation, and this new book, Meditation for the Real World.
No, fascinating. And I mean, like you mentioned, the chronic pain. So, like, what kind of pain? What were you suffering?
Yeah, I've had joint pain since I was a teenager, and it goes up and down with hormone levels. It goes up and down if I don't get enough sleep, like in college when I would pull all-nighters or if I would go out drinking. I thought, oh, this is what a hangover feels like. But then I'd look around and nobody else felt like as much pain as I felt, like crawling out of bed level pain. And eventually I realized, oh, I have something a little different that is just caused by inflammation. So anything that inflames me, lack of sleep, eating foods that are inflammatory for me, it flares the pain. I have had a diagnosis of fibromyalgia. I don't know. I like haven't gone into depth of like treatments for it because I really have a lot of tools now with meditation, with yoga, with mind body practices to deal with the pain. But it's something that flares, it comes and goes. You know, if I have a bad night of sleep, I will have pain the next day. And so I mostly work with people with chronic pain since I have this experience with it myself.
And because I remember I was a good boy. I didn't start drinking till I was 18. And I remember when I started drinking beer, I used to be in agony and my
Mhm.
knees, I couldn't walk around. So then I just switched to whiskey and it stopped, it went away. And I've seen that with a few people. So like the other thing is, and like it just shows how a drink, not just alcohol, but foods and everything. And unfortunately, now there's so much processed food, and even
Yes.
some of the drinks that people are drinking, even they say natural, it might have one natural ingredient, and people are being fooled, and they're getting a lot of ailments, and they think it's just age and stuff like that. And I think if you pay more attention to yourself and watch what everything you can actually stop a lot of that.
Yeah, I think that's what meditation teaches us is how to listen to your body, right? There's this inner body awareness where your heart is constantly speaking to you. You either feel an open heart or closed chest. Your muscles are speaking to you too. Like you feel tightness lifting in your shoulders when something's really stressful. You have that lightness or butterflies in your stomach. Your body, your organs are constantly speaking to you. And my joints speak to me. We call this inner body awareness interoception, perception of the inner body. And meditation has been shown to like help us enhance this interoception. And when we have better interoception, we can listen to our body signals and deliver whatever it needs better. I think, get in touch with our intuition.
Absolutely. And like, how long did you actually stay in India, and what exactly did it entail? Was it like going to one
Yeah.
class a day, or were you heavily immersed in it?
It was immersed. It was in an ashram. My teacher, Yogi Shivadas, he's phenomenal teacher. He was in Dharamsala up in the north where the Dalai Lama lives. It's really beautiful there. And it was, waking up at 4 a.m., doing all the kriyas, do your neti, do your meditations, your chanting. The asana class in the morning was Ashtanga, and then in the afternoon it was Shivananda, the full practices. And then it was philosophy and theory, and he integrated a lot of anatomy and physiology, which is what sparked my interest to continue on my studies with that. But I also did training and like sound healing and Ayurvedic massage, so that really got me into other aspects of healing.
And how long were you actually there in India?
Oh, sorry, I didn't answer that part of the question. I was there like, I feel like it was like 5 months.
Okay. No,
Yeah.
because I think it's fantastic what you've done, because like you've gone there with the the locals as such where it was created, and you're learning from the best. And then, so was it straight from there to China, or did you come home for a few years, and how long before you
It
did?
was actually backwards. I said it backwards. I was in China first, and my teachers were Indian, and they were like, you might as well go to India. So then I went to India from there. But I had studied Chinese in school. So when I graduated from college, the pandemic had hit, and excuse me, not the pandemic, the recession. No, there's a whole other story with the pandemic and how that's affected my career in life. But the recession had hit, and there weren't jobs in the US, so I went to China and I got a job. I taught at a university. I taught English there, and I ended up doing a lot of yoga and Tai Chi while I was there. And ultimately, getting my teacher training in Chinese, which was an extra challenge for those of you that have ever done a training like that, because I had to teach my sample class in Chinese.
I suppose for those that haven't done Tai Chi, like what, because I mean,
Mm.
you're at a different level than somebody just going to a class from somebody that's just going to learn from somebody, maybe in America or Europe or whatever, but you're really learning from the best. So, I suppose, what exactly are the full benefits of it?
Yeah, well, Tai Chi, I would say I'm not at a different level because the best Tai Chi practitioners, they're the older ones. Like I got to be in my 80s, 90s to say I'm a Tai Chi master, right? It's one of those disciplines that you get better at with age and with practice, of course. And so the benefits of Tai Chi are very similar to yoga. If anybody knows my book, Science of Yoga, it has all the benefits to yoga to every system of your body, right? It's going to help with your immune system. So you get sick less often. Obviously, your nervous system, helping with mental health, emotional regulation. It's going to help with sleep. But the biggest thing that's different, I'd say, from Tai Chi versus yoga is that Tai Chi is the gold standard for balance and fall prevention. Right next to physical therapy, Tai Chi performs the highest of all the different movement modalities. So that's one reason why it's often recommended for older adults because balance and fall prevention is really huge. But also, it is a little bit more accessible, I think, to older adults in that you don't have to get down on the floor. It's all standing, or you could do it in a chair. So those are some kind of differences that it's more accessible in its traditional form. Of course, we can adapt yoga to be accessible in that way too. But Tai Chi, just by nature, go to any Tai Chi class. Most of it you'll be able to really easily adapt. You just take smaller steps. So it's really great for beginners. It's weird. It's surprising that you'll even though it's like looks so gentle, you're like, oh wow, my arms are sore. I'm not used to holding them that way. So it's still is definitely a challenge in its own way.
It's like what I've started doing is like a back class weekly, and I think it's kind of like yoga as well at times because a lot of I've never done yoga classes, but what I haven't had back pain for. I mean, I'm doing this for nearly a year, nearly 2 years, I suppose, and because you're using postures that you normally don't. Your hands are in the air, you're doing this, you're doing that. And I think that's the problem with most of us is like we're wondering why we've got all these ailments and something goes wrong. And it's like, it's because we're not using our body.
Yeah, we're not doing unique dynamic movements. It's just sitting in a chair in the same posture for most of the day. And really, what we're meant to do is move constantly through the day, right? Humans are meant to be walking constantly, not in cars or commuting on a train. We're meant to be, making our own food. All of these things are more labor intensive. This is how our bodies have evolved to do these activities out in nature. And now we're not. And it's interesting that the current research is that's coming out is showing that short little movement snacks or breaks throughout the day may be even more beneficial than, our traditional that we've developed since the like 50s of do an hour, 3 times a week. Our bodies are meant for that more constant movement through the day. So, of course, little things you can do, get up and take a walk when you've been sitting too long, things like that. Do some chair yoga as a break at your desk. But the same thing I think is true of meditation. And the research I think will catch up soon. I'm seeing more and more research on meditations that are 5 minutes, 3 minutes, 1 minute, and seeing the immediate effects, seeing the changes, even some changes last all day and through the week from a 5 minute meditation. That's amazing. So people think that for meditation, they need to sit for 20 to 40 minutes as a traditional practice on a floor on a cushion in a perfectly silent place. But really, as meditation for the real world there's the cover is somebody sitting on a subway and she has headphones on. She's got her feet grounded down. She's sitting tall. Perhaps she's listening to a guided meditation, or maybe she's listening to a song, and she is the only one that looks present on that subway. Everyone else is scrolling on their phones. One guy's hunched over his laptop. And that's what we do with these moments through the day where we could be present and take a powerful pause. We are, scrolling. Rather than scrolling while you wait, meditate while you wait. These 1 minute meditations, these little mini meditations make a profound difference.
Absolutely. And you didn't realize, but she's actually listening to the meditation podcast, and that's why.
Yes, that's what she's doing.
So, like, just because there's a lot on the meditation I want to touch on, but since like we were talking about the yoga and stuff, because I saw on you've got a very good TikTok, and your YouTube channel is massive as well. But I saw one on your TikTok, and it was like you were doing like the yoga on the stairs, and I was like, "Ooh, that's clever," because we're always up and down the stairs, and it's like you
Yes.
just had a few little things, and you might just touch on that because I thought it was very good.
Yeah, that's kind of that movement snack that I was saying. It's like I actually rarely on my own do a full hour yoga class uh, on my mat. It's more through the day, leaning over my desk and doing a downward dog and pedaling my feet and doing a few movements. Or, like you said, when I was in a house that had stairs, every time I took the stairs, I did a sun salutation on the stairs. And that's much more accessible. I have wrist arthritis. And so if you have your hands on the stairs, it's not as much pressure than as on the floor. A lot of yoga poses, people feel like, oh, I can't do yoga because it hurts my hands. Well, if you can incline it, whether it be the stairs or do something on the wall or a chair, it really helps with your joints. So finding little things, like in the kitchen counter when you're waiting for your tea to boil, that's a great time to practice your tree pose or even a sun salutation against the counter. And that's something that I like integrate into my day.
I think that's fantastic because it's all about that. It's all about getting the right habits, and
Yes.
with the meditation then, because like what I've kind of learned, and it was more myself rather than being taught it. It was like I've realized, most unfortunately, a lot of people say you have to sit this way, you have to have your fingers this way,
Yes.
and you close your eyes, and then some people say, no, you're supposed to open your eyes, you're supposed to do this, you're supposed to. And I found that walking on the beach and just staring into nothingness was working for me. Always grounding. I mean, even now I'm barefoot. I like to be grounded and like going outside and everything. And I just found things that work for me. And I know that in your book you're kind of touching on that as well. And I think at the end of the day, it's kind of what resonates with you. You can try a few things.
Yes.
You can have people, and like unfortunately, a lot of them are pushing it's my way or the highway, but you're
Oh,
not doing that. And that's
yes.
what I love about the book is it's like you give so many examples and people go, oh, I can try that. And then when they feel better, that's when they start continuing the practice.
Yes. And it's also what's right for you, but also what's right for you for that situation, right? I'm a yoga therapist, so I adapt therapeutically for, if you're depressed, it's going to be a different meditation than if you're anxious. If you're trying to fall asleep, that's going to be a different meditation than you're about to go on stage, right? And there's meditations for each of those. There's a meditation for FOMO. That's going to be different than the meditation for doom scrolling in the text section of the book, right? So you use it more as a handbook. You're like, this is what I'm dealing with right now. I'm feeling a lot of grief because I lost a loved one. Let me go to the section on grief. So it's not exactly the type of book you read cover to cover, but instead you pick out the meditation that will work for you for that situation and you try it out. And some of them are 1 minute long. Some of them you could practice a little longer.
Like I know some schools in some place around the world, they with the kids, they try to get them involved in meditation. And I know you touch on that. So like it's something I would love to see because the next generation would be totally different. That
Yes.
there wouldn't be the evil that you see because like when you're more, I think it's you have to be in tune with yourself first to feel true love for yourself, and when you do that then you've true love for others once you understand yourself. And unfortunately a lot of people, they're hurting, and because they're hurting others.
Yes. Hurt people hurt people. And I love what you're doing with the meditation podcast because I truly believe that if we can get people to be able to sit silently with themselves, that it's going to spread peace in the world. It all starts with you. And yeah, I think that that's what's really important is getting the kids involved with it, but as adults in the household, the best thing to do is meditate yourself. They're going to see you meditate. They're going to see, oh, we arrived early to this meeting and we're to this doctor's appointment, and it's been a hustle all day for you to get there, and your kid's in the back seat, and you take a powerful pause. You take a mini meditation, You close your eyes, you pull up the meditation podcast, you take that break. They're going to watch and see you be an alchemist of your own emotions and neurochemistry, and that's really the biggest impact. However, I do have a section in the book on what things you can do with kids, of course integrating drawing and games into it to make it fun, but also tactile things you can do, like a couple breaths with a toddler that's having a tantrum. So we know that if you cover your right nostril, and typically we cover it with like our right thumb. So if you cover your right nostril and you just breathe through your left nostril, that is going to activate your parasympathetic nervous system, that rest and digest, taking nice, slow belly breaths through the left nostril. And I love doing this with kids too, because it's tactile. They have to like, feel their body, get into their body, feel it, and then take those slow breaths with you. So there's little things you can do with kids that just take a couple of breaths where they can also feel that they can be an alchemist of their own emotions and feelings, and feel that transformation for themselves.
Absolutely. And you mentioned your own anxiety, and unfortunately, it's mental issues, anxiety, all the different. There's so much thing going on in the world today, and like with breath work as well. I think for me, I found that like it learning breath work kind of made me really relax, and I mean, even if there's a car situation, it's very rare that I kind of I say you just step out of your control, but I'm aware of not being in control and come back into it.
Mm-hmm.
And which with anxiety, then like, is it more finding the meditation that's kind of suiting you, or is it a breath work or a
Yeah.
combination?
Absolutely, combination and also movement practices, right? Because when there's a problem in the mind, like you're very anxious, often the answer is in the body. Like we know that when we feel that anxious, go for a walk, right? Go for a walk in nature. Then you're getting the benefits of nature too. So definitely it's all of those things. But I have a story of how meditation did me wrong with anxiety that I'd like to share.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, I feel like the most common technique that you may learn is mindfulness meditation techniques are often used, but specifically being mindful of your breath and your body sensations. And those are great focal points for meditation. Don't get me wrong. But I have this problem where I pass out at the doctor's office when I'm getting a procedure done and the doctor or the nurse is not providing compassionate care. They're not listening to me. My body's way of dealing with that is just boom, on the floor, passed out. Now you can't do the procedure. So I went to a yoga teacher and I said, "What can I do? I'm so sick of this. I mean, when I come to, I don't even know who I am. I have an adrenaline rush for days. I can't sleep. I can't drive home. It's really a mess." I'm like, "What can I do to not pass out at the doctor's office?" And he says, "Okay, so next time you go in there, you're going to notice your body sensations and your breath sensations." So I go in there and I'm all empowered. I'm like, "I'm going to do this. I'm going to use these meditation techniques. Meditation's relaxing. I'm going to use this." So I go in and I start to notice my body sensations, and my heart is beating out of my chest. And then I feel myself go pale and I taste metal. And then I start to notice my breath and it's strained and it's out of control. And boom, I'm out on the floor faster than I've ever been before. And I've looked into the research, and apparently, for people with acute anxiety, body awareness and breath awareness make it worse. So if you are to the point of like passing out, it's really intense in that moment, those are not the techniques to go to. Of course, increasing your body awareness over time when you're in a safe place at home, that's going to be helpful with anxiety, but not in the heat of the moment, right? So instead, if anybody else has this sort of level of anxiety, near panic attack, instead of bringing my awareness inward, which can feel like, your body's betraying you in that moment, instead of that, I bring my awareness outward. Like you were describing, I feel my feet on the ground. I'm going to press my feet down. If I'm sitting, I'll feel the bottom of my thighs touching the surface beneath me. I'll place my hands, palms facing down. You can do this as you're listening. I'll get a little taller and I'll feel the outside of my body. I'll feel with each exhale, my body releasing into that surface. And then I can answer questions to the doctor. I can be present. Now, if I don't have to be present, I am going right into visualization. I am going to imagine I'm at the beach. I'm going to curl my toes. I'm getting a dental procedure or something. I don't have to answer questions. I'm curling my toes, imagining them in the sand. I am hearing my breath as the sound of the ocean. And I just go there, right? Go to your safe, happy place. So that's what you can also do depending on the situation. So I think this was something that really highlighted to me the importance of not only the right meditation for the right person or life stage they may be in, but also for the right situation, you know? And as a yoga therapist, that was important to me. So in this book, Meditation for the Real World, each situation, I look to the research, what could be helpful. I look to other clinical practices and what is helpful for trauma versus grief, what techniques would be most beneficial. And so you can try them out for yourself and see what works for you.
And like a lot of what you just said, because I know you touch on the flight. And for me, I've never been afraid of flying. And even if it's turbulence, I get joy. I won't say joy, maybe it's my escapism by watching people clinging in on their
Ah,
claws and how they're
it's a roller
reacting.
coaster ride.
But
Yeah.
but I know a lot of people suffer from that. So it's kind of something similar, really, grounding yourself. You may just kind of, because I know there is a lot of people that actually fear flying.
Yeah, fear of flying. That is a huge one. Um, Whenever possible, holding the hand, if you're with your partner or your child, holding their hand, right? Then we can have some co-regulation where our nervous systems start to align and we're soothing each other. Sometimes even a stranger will be comfortable with that. You have to ask first, but that can be a really beneficial technique. Um, it it depends on the person whether or not looking out the window is going to be good for you. So that's something that I would, play with. Sometimes that's helpful and sometimes it's not. I find also having the air on me and feeling the cool air. So make sure the air is as high as it can go and have that on you because if you feel a little sick, that's going to help too. So that's a very beneficial. And you have several options. You can be present with it or you can go into your happy place, right? Like I just described, that same scenario with anxiety. You can imagine you're at the beach and hear the sound of the ocean. Um, so that could be beneficial to you. I have several techniques to try out in the book and a whole section because I feel like when you go on an airplane, even the whole, rushing to get there and then you arrive at the gate, there's so many moments that are beneficial for meditating. We have so much waiting time in that. We have so much rushing and then waiting. It's like up and down. And so if you could take advantage of those little moments through a flight, that's going to help you be able to handle the challenges that come your way when there's some turbulence and in life, right? When it feels turbulent, finding a sense of being grounded and present.
You mentioned grief, and unfortunately, we haven't figured that one out yet to, live forever. But so we have to, we lose loved ones, and
Mm,
just dealing with that, and kind of what kind of advice you could give, because unfortunately, especially when it's a loved one very close, that
yeah.
it can be really traumatic for people.
Yeah. So we all have heard of DABDA, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance, and those being the stages of grief. However, there's way more stages than that based off of research and from the experts. We have initial shock. That's part of it. We have a sense of hopelessness in the beginning, but then There's a stage of hopefulness toward the end. And there's stages of post-traumatic growth toward the end too, where you begin to see a light and reintegrate, and you're stronger than you were before in some ways in your reintegration process. You have a greater purpose based off of that person that you loved and what they taught you. So the meditation I have in the book, it takes a moment to recognize what stage of grief am I in, or am I in multiple stages right now? And recognizing this is part of the process. It's part of the transition. You need to go through those stages and feel them, because if you push them down, then it's going to elongate the process. So if we can take some dedicated time to feel it, to acknowledge that we're in this stage or multiple. You're not only in depression at once, you might be in anger and depression simultaneously. So recognizing the stages of grief you're feeling in that moment, and then letting it flow through you. So much of the day when we're grieving the loss of a loved one, or even the loss of, I don't know, a job, loss of something else in life, loss of identity in some way, is we feel like we have to hold it together. So meditation can be a great time that if you need to cry, cry, but don't feel like you have to cry. Whatever happens, happens. Accepting that in that moment. And so I invite that sense of like not feeling obligated to cry, but if you need to cry, if you need to move, do so. Honor your body, and honor the process of grief.
Like you mentioned, like say with the yoga, that you kind of more you're mindful constantly of just in your everyday life. And I just curious with kind of the meditation, then what's your everyday kind of, is it similar?
Yes, I integrate little mini meditations through my day. I definitely have a dedicated seated meditation practice in the morning. And the best way for people to develop that is to pair it with an activity you already do, right? So I do red light therapy for my joint pain. And so I have to sit in front of this, red light for 10 minutes a day. And so I use that time to do my meditation. Maybe you like to have a cup of coffee or tea in the morning, and while it's brewing, you can do your meditation and look out at the sunrise, and then your first sip of coffee or tea is with that behind you. So finding an activity, something you already do for that morning meditation, if you want to integrate it, whether it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever length of time. 1 minute meditation is going to be great for the morning too, to get started. And then throughout the day, if I'm early to a Zoom meeting, I'm going to be doing a little meditation. I'm going to be getting grounded and present before I send a really stressful email I've been working on. I'm going to take a look at it, and then I'm going to turn my chair away from the screen, broaden my view, maybe even look out a window so that I can let my eyes expand the vision. Our eyes are not meant to be focused in on the computer screen or phone screen as often and as long as we do. And so I just take that moment to take it in as an expansive sort of vision, and I check in with my body. Your body ultimately knows that interoception, what to do in each situation. So even just a minute of that, I'm going to turn back around, and I'm going to be able to get to that email with a greater sense of clarity and feel more comfortable, whether I have to edit it or I'm ready to send it. I'm like, this is it. I got to send this. So it can help me in those little moments, where I have an extra moment, early for the doctor's office, since I have that problem at the doctor's office. I'm definitely not scrolling my phone. I am using that minute to settle my energy, because I probably just rushed to get there. So yeah, I'm just constantly reminding myself to not scroll while I wait, instead meditate while I wait more often, even in line at the coffee shop. 10 years ago, you would just be chatting with the people in line with you. Now what do? We're all on our phones. So I'm fitting these little moments, these mindful moments, even techniques like that aren't just mindfulness, compassion meditations, which more and more research is coming out about, like we've been in my family, we have some road rage issues, and the traffic's bad, people cut you off, you feel like you want to yell at them. Like, it's funny, even the nicest people, or you may be very calm in most circumstances, but I feel like when you put somebody in a car, that's when it comes out. And instead of yelling at that person, we send them loving kindness. May they be safe, right? May they be healthy. May all the people around them be safe, because they're a crazy driver. I want everyone to be safe here. So we'll do those sort of techniques through the day, and it makes a huge difference.
And like, it's something that I'm very conscious of, is like, before, when you go on the bus and whatever, when everybody didn't have the smartphones, you're looking out the window, which to me is a form of meditation, or you're just in a daydream, and no matter what you're doing. But them days are gone. And I think we have to be conscious of that, because I know I'm guilty of it at times. And now even people, even walking, they're not even present walking. They have to have the phone out with them. And I think some of it is a form of anxiety and shyness, because it's like the people that are smoking. Because I've noticed that just through the years, just being conscious of different things, that a lot of people, when they're walking on their own, they're smoking like that. That was their kind of way of getting over the shyness of just walking. And I think it's the same with a lot of people when they're moving around. I don't think that, well, there is an addiction to the phone,
It
but there's
is.
also, it's kind of like an escapism from the fear of actually being out in public, and shyness and things like that.
Yeah, yeah. And I think the smoking thing also is about taking deep breaths.
Yeah.
We need to take those deep breaths. Your body's craving it. So people trying to stop smoking, breath work is a really great method. And it's also the social aspect. We're social creatures. People like to take their smoke breaks. Well, replace it with another social connection. So, what is the real root of this? And then, as far as the walking goes, I mean, some cities have had to put padding on their light poles because people literally walk into the light poles and get like knots on their foreheads. Yes. And it's ridiculous, the lack of presence in our walking. And I think, like you said, walking is meditation. Walking meditation is when you're really present. Each walk, each time you're walking, you can imagine, as Thich Nhat Hanh says, you're the happiest person on earth. With each step, imagine you're the happiest person on earth. Set an intention for your walk to be present, and it's going to change everything. You're going to exude that. You'll smile at people rather than looking at your phone. Have that connection. Enjoy the sound of the birds and the sunshine. Uh, I mean, I do think one thing I want to be careful of, though, is we hear the advice constantly in the modern world: just be mindful all the time. That's the answer to everything, is to just be mindful. Mindfulness meditation has become so popular. Mindfulness in general, mindfulness in the workplace. It's become so popular that I think sometimes it can feel trite, and you can feel like, oh, well, that's impossible. And it kind of is, because when we look at the research, a very large study published in Science shows that humans mind wander a whopping 47% of the waking hours. So it just naturally, we are mind wandering machines. That's what we do. We're constantly searching for threats. And so to just be mindful all the time is a feat that we're going to fail at. So that's why I really want to integrate these 1 minute meditations, these powerful pauses where you can reset. You can press the reset button. You can notice, oh, I was not being very present. So I need this moment. It could even be a one breath meditation when you're about to, blow a fuse and yell at your kids or do something that you're going to regret. It's to come back into that presence, because it's impossible to just be mindful all the time. And if you have that as the goal, then you're going to fail.
So, with, like, when you were both in China and India, I'm just curious, and your own experience with sun gazing, because I personally, it's hard here because I'm not by the beach or whatever, but it's safe during the sunrise and sunset, and I just
Yes.
found it very beneficial for me, and something that I practice. But I'm just curious what way they kind of treat it, and what they're recommending.
Oh, well, in those countries, nothing in particular. What comes out to me was in China, when you go to the parks, the older people, they're doing Tai Chi, they're doing their dances with ribbons, and they're hugging trees. This was over a decade ago when I was living in China. So maybe it was actually, now that I think about it, it was 15 years ago. But you'd see these little moments, and it's only older people. So I'm sure that that practice will die out of connecting with nature in that way. Literally physically touching nature. I mean, it sounds woo-woo and
No, but
crazy,
my
but we know
son
it
was doing
helps
that at an early age. He was like just hugging trees.
naturally. Yeah.
But I embraced it because I had read The Hidden Life of Trees and
Mm.
understand this, like it's like the World Web with trees and how they support each
Yes.
other and everything. So it's like they do live, they have their own energy field and everything. And obviously he was more in tune with it than the rest
He
of
was in
us.
tune. Yes, definitely. But we also know that connecting physically, touching nature is what scientists call earthing. We colloquially call it grounding, but it's called earthing. And you're being in contact with the negative charge of the earth when you're touching, whether it be a tree, the grass, the sand, when you're barefoot. So I suggest, when you go on your nature walk, take a moment and sit down on a bench or on a tree stump. Take your shoes off if you can, if it's not the dead of winter. Or if it is, touch a tree, like we were just saying. But put your feet on the ground and physically feel it. We've found that this reduces inflammation significantly, helps with mental health, depression, and anxiety. It even lowers your blood sugar spikes, which we know is huge just by being physically in contact with the earth. This is something we're also meant to do is we're meant to be outside in nature more. And I think original humans didn't wear shoes, right? So we're meant to touch nature more. So to integrate that into your meditation, you're going to gain more benefits. So I like to use science to help me enhance these benefits. So same with the sunrise. When I would normally be watching the sunrise just rose as we've been talking. You probably see the light behind me if
You're
you're
probably
watching the
giving out to
video.
me now for ruining your beautiful moment.
So I'll go and I'll watch the sunrise. If you can see the sun, that's great. But even just the sky during sunrise, it has more blues in it. And those blues, they help wake you up. You release a little cortisol. We hear cortisol, stress hormone, that's bad. But no, in the morning, that's good. We actually want that to be where we have more cortisol because it's going to wake us up, get us ready for the day. And then at night, if you can take a mindful moment, do your meditation looking at the sunset, whether it's, just the sky, maybe you can't see the actual sun or you see the sun. Either way, the colors in the sky are red, orange, pink. This, those colors tell your brain to release melatonin, and that's going to help you sleep. So your brain can synthesize all of these drugs that we buy as pills. And it's better if you can begin to regulate them on your own by setting your circadian rhythm. And so that's a great time to do a little meditation. It's just looking at the sky, looking and going in nature for a moment. You can look out your window, but the window glass, it filters some of the UV rays so you don't get the full spectrum. So it is better to go outside if you can.
You were mentioning like being at nature and grounding, and what I'm kind of conscious of as well as, especially like if you're wearing shoes, if you've leather shoes and everything, I think you're grounding with them. But most of the normal shoes, they've got synthetic soles now,
Rubber.
and most
Yeah.
people are wearing trainers and everything, and they're not. And even though they might seem comfortable and they think it's good, they don't actually. They're not grounding, and we have to be conscious of that as well. Make conscious decisions with our purchasing, so that we get stuff that actually makes us connect to the earth.
Yeah. And then also just, I do my walking meditation barefoot in the backyard, just kind of pace back and forth in the grass. And that's how I get that in there too. So, if you have to wear shoes and you're on floors that are not going to be grounding for you, finding these little moments and ways to integrate them into your meditation practice can be super beneficial.
Excellent. Excellent. And thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. And I'm not just saying this because you're on the show, but I would highly recommend your book because, like, obviously, by listening to what we've just discussed, but it's only a fraction of what's in it. And I think everything that you're giving is beneficial. And by people applying it, like you can read books on so many different things. You can go and do the courses. But I think, you mentioned the magic pill. So many people are taking pills. I think we can start weaning off the pills. And when you start doing that, your mind starts getting better. You start touching in with your intuition, which in turn makes you a better person. And if we want to see change in the world, it's kind of within. And I think what you've
Yes.
created is a great start.
Thank you. And this book is really a gift book too. This is for your skeptical neighbor, your mother-in-law who was told to meditate by their doctor but just couldn't get into it. It has the science to support it. I worked with a Harvard researcher, neuroscientist, Dr. Sarah Lazar, to integrate the most cutting edge research, but in a really accessible way with lots of like pictures to demonstrate and help you really relaxing pictures. So it's a coffee table book. It's a book to have by your bedside. It's not like a heavy read. So yes, I hope you'll go to meditationfortherealworld.com to check out the book. You can buy the book wherever books are sold, but my gift to your listeners is they get guided meditations that incorporate music and nature sounds that have been engineered to optimize your brain waves. So we choose specific sounds to induce the feeling that, if you've ever listened to a track of nature sounds or specific songs that have helped you feel more relaxed and at ease, we're going to use that to enhance your meditation practice. So that's at meditationfortherealworld.com. That's the best way to get in contact. As you said, hopefully you'll put my YouTube below. That's Ann
No,
Swanson
and I mean, I'll have your LinkedIn,
Wellness.
I'll have all
Yeah,
your
perfect.
and your TikTok as well, because as I mentioned, just the stair one, but you've got a few like that as well, and I think that's the way to connect with people, because there's everyone's got their kind of social media that they love. So if they're big into TikToks, they'll start following you, which in turn they'll start seeing the stuff, which in turn they'll start applying different things, and before they know it, they've actually, they're doing basically what they should be doing, and they'll feel 10 times better. And so you might think social
Yes.
media is bad for you, but sometimes it can be very good.
If it gets you to get a book, right? A physical book, then I think it's a good thing. For sure. I think, it's nice to have something physical too. That's what I really wanted to create in this world of scrolling and digital products, is to have something that's beautiful and physical. Worked with a New York Times illustrator on this, some of the best designers in the world. So it's that kind of to have something in your hand, the smell of a book, the sound of the paper turning. It's a whole nother feel. So definitely go to meditationfortherealworld.com.
And like the thing is, a lot of books, they're just, one color. You've got beautiful, as you said, the illustrations, but the colors as well. And it's like, sometimes people, they say, I can't read a book, but they'll find one chapter that's kind of, oh, I
Yes.
like this, I need this now. And
It's
then
little tidbits.
exactly,
Yes.
or they just go open their coffee in the garden and they can do the next one. So I commend you on what you've done. You've created it brilliant, and I look forward to reading the next one, because I'm actually starting, and it's interesting as well. And I'm sure there'll be more books in you, and we definitely get you back. So
Yes.
I'll make sure I put all the links, all the websites on both the audio and the video. So thank you very much, Anne.
Thank you.
So that's all for the speaking podcast and the meditation podcast. You'll find me on speakingpodcast.com, meditationpodcast.org. Be sure to share with your friends, give us a thumbs up and a comment, because when you do that, helps the algorithms, more people see it. And I think for what we discussed today, everybody needs it. So until next week, take care. So I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. As mentioned at the start, you'll find my 6 podcasts on bio.link/podcaster. And also, if you'd like to start a podcast or do a podcasting tour, you'll find the information on that or on the QR code that's there. Be sure to give us a thumbs up, 5-star rating, and share with your friends, because it really helps. And also, I'd like to thank DanielPackard.com, helping people with fear, doubt, and anxiety. He's got a 90% success rate, and he's only charging if he helps you. So be sure to check him out, and you get a free call to discuss everything. Until next week, take care.